Morning. My name is Fred Kuffner. I'm a sales engineer at Salesforce.com in the media communication space. We're going to talk about integration today. So I put this quote up here just because I think it sort of signifies what I think is really good about how Salesforce does integration, and I'm a big believer in simplicity, so food for thought. So we're in energizing your deployment with integration, so if you're not in the right session, you can leave now. So we have our speakers today. We have Karen Lee from Standard & Poor's and Chris Denning from EasyNet. Anyone in here not a customer yet? We have customers? Not. This is for you? Everyone else, you can not pay attention. So, excuse me, safe harbor statement. It's on our website. We talk about anything here that may be forward-looking. Please make your decisions based on what's currently available. So, like I said, I'm Fred Kuffner. Karen and Chris are going to be speaking. Primarily, it's about their story, integration, successes that they've had, what they've done. So, a little bit about integration. How do you integrate, and what are the sort of the salient points that are important about integration? So, web services is really the way to get, actually the only way to get in and out of Salesforce. So everything that we do, everything that our partners do, all the tools, eventually it resolves down to web services. So it can be done at various layers. We have different connectors that allow you to get your data in and out of Salesforce. And the real key about integration, and oftentimes what I like to talk about is, we realize that Salesforce doesn't hold all of the data in all of our solutions, right? We realize that when we engage with customers that they're going to have other systems. And being able to easily integrate with these other systems, expose data, is key. Because we want you to be able to be successful from day one. Having a blank Salesforce organization with no data is kind of useless. So 3 styles of integration. You can integrate at the UI layer. We have application logic and at your data layer. What I think, I'm hoping that we'll take away from this session, just hearing from customers, it's great that I can come up here and talk about how the integration platform is a great way to pull these other data sources. But really want some success stories, customers to talk about what they've done and what are some of the partners that they've leveraged to make this happen. Just think about new ways to bring data in. I mean, using Salesforce is sort of the glue to bring in data from other systems, feeds, other services, and so forth. That's really what another aspect that I'd like you all to take away from the session today. And to pay heed to Chris, energize means the same as energize. UK spelling inside joke. So I'd like to hand it over to Karen, Standard & Poor's.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Karen Lee. I'm the Manager of Data Quality and CRM for Standard & Poor's. For those of you who doesn't know who Standard & Poor's is, Standard & Poor's is a leading financial services provider of independent credit ratings, indices, risk evaluation, investment research, and data. We have over 10,000 employees globally, and we've implemented Salesforce back in 2005, and we have, to date, more than 900 Salesforce users. Today, I wanted to share the importance of CRM integration architecture with you. In 2005, we've implemented a very complex architecture for our Salesforce implementation. And this architecture throughout 2005, 2006, and 2007 has not been sustainable. And we actually didn't have it scalable as well. So the integration was completely redesigned in 2008. So I'll talk through these slides and let you know what are the pain points from the end users, and also what are the root cause analysis of the problems that the users are seeing, the metrics, some of the key metrics that we actually identified for the users, and the proposed solution as to why we actually redesigned the hub and integration in 2008. Some of the pain points that our end users are seeing are very focused around data quality and data integrity. The integration that we built in 2005 is a very ideal technical architecture. Salesforce was very new to us. We wanted to protect our corporate data, and we also wanted to ideally build a real-time integration. But unfortunately, with the idealistic architecture, we were not able to maintain the data integrity and the data quality that we wanted. So the end users were seeing duplication of records. We'll have the same contacts probably 3 or 5 times, 3 to 4 or 5 times in the system of the same instance. Contacts were improperly associated to accounts. We would have Japanese contacts associated with US accounts. Accounts and contacts with incomplete and invalid address information. End users would be seeing in the Salesforce UI that the information actually needs to be complete in order for them to save the record. But we have not done that due diligence actually in the upfront for our integration. So in the back end and the feeds, all the information that was being passed over to Salesforce is incomplete. And we also had a lot of inactive contacts. When we built the system in 2005, we've basically took all the spreadsheets under someone's desk. We've pulled in all the legacy CRM systems and integrated into Salesforce. And probably over the course of 2 years, we realized that a lot of these contacts were actually not even relevant. And unfortunately, the pain point for the users is that day after day, they actually have to see it on their search results. And we also had improper permissions to view records. Users were able to see records that they shouldn't be seeing. We had a large amount of profiles, roles, and sharing rules, which actually conflicted with one another. So I've actually cleaned up the architecture to make it more crisp, even though maybe it doesn't look very complex to you. It's pretty complex. On the far left-hand side, those are the different databases that we've integrated into our customer data hub. And in that layer where you see the ETL tool, we've used Informatica to bring the information over to the customer data hub. But unfortunately, we haven't actually leveraged Informatica to what's actually possible. So we built a lot of stored procedures in this process. And that information gets queued up in the service bus and passed over to the customer data hub. And on the far right-hand side, you'll see all the Salesforce App Exchange platforms that we use. You'll see the front end of the Salesforce database. And we created a web logic adapter to read and write information through custom Java code to basically update our customer hub. And when all the information is actually passed into the customer hub has a data quality management tool that's very sophisticated to determine the different priorities of which data actually wins. So if the information is coming from Salesforce and the same contact information is coming from subscriptions and also from billing, the hub will actually bring all these information together, aggregate it, and push the final record out. Unfortunately, that logic is extremely subjective. There's no true business rules around that piece of logic, and we've basically based it on, since billing is an invoice application, then we said it gets the highest priority. And if subscriptions is important based from the business, then it gets the second high priority. So some of the metrics that we found, just based on looking at the data quality, we had a total of 250,000 plus accounts. We have over 1 million plus contacts. And within these accounts and contacts, we found that there are more than 23,000 accounts that have invalid address parameters. We have over 167,000 plus contacts that have invalid address parameters. As mentioned before, the reason why the accounts and contacts have invalid information and incomplete information is because we actually didn't put in the necessary validation through our integration. And there are more than 16,000 account duplicates and more than 52,000 contact duplicates that we need to take care of. And the duplications are only based on the criteria that we have. So the rest of them that actually has invalid address parameters, unfortunately, the end users are the ones that are actually cleaning this up for us. So we've went through a series of evaluation for our existing integration architecture because it's very expensive to sunset the architecture that we have only built for 3 years and to redo it. But unfortunately, any problems that the users are actually facing as a pain point, it would take our team probably a week to evaluate, and then they'll come back and say it's a fluke. So there was no way to actually determine how to resolve the problem. There was just way too many custom code. There was way too many transitions within our architecture, and it was way too complex for what our business actually needs. So we sunsetted the existing hub, and we wanted to redesign a more simplified hub for integration and deduplication. We had to redesign all the integrations that we had on the far left-hand side of the architecture. We also needed to redesign a merge and dedupe logic. As mentioned before, inside the customer data hub, it's very subjective logic. So we went back to the business and asked them, how do you actually want to control your main source of CRM data? And we also created an ongoing process for merge and dedupe. We found that a lot of users doesn't search prior to creating an account or a contact. So with technologies like Apex Code and Visualforce, we were able to enforce that the users search prior to adding it in. So some of our main success criteria, we definitely have a more simplified hub architecture. It's more of a data transit hub now. We have no need to maintain any stored procedures, any Java code, even the layers that we've created, the enterprise service bus and also the WebLogic adapter. It's definitely more scalable. Prior to that, when a business asks us if we can actually do integration, we cringe and we tell them no. And it's definitely much easier to maintain. We found out that the business actually does not need a real-time integration, and the real-time integration aspect of our technology architecture probably took around 70% of our time to actually maintain. And we basically built an architecture specifically for the current business need. So we actually didn't need to have that WebLogic adapter layer in our new architecture, but have the capability to have real-time integration in the future. And also definitely leverage the available tools instead of creating custom code, because everything's easily configurable. So there's no need to create any type of custom code or any type of layers when you can use it natively. And it was actually very easy for us because Informatica was already our enterprise standard. So we've looked at a couple of vendors, but for us it was a fairly simple choice. And also, there's a lot of vendors that actually support the Salesforce API, and we haven't properly leveraged the Salesforce API to its fullest. Just to give you an idea of how long it actually took us to redesign the integration, it is actually a very short amount of time because of everything that we were actually able to leverage. So just from the beginning of the project to the end of the project, it took around 6 months to redesign the existing integration for all the systems. The businesses were very supportive because they actually saw all the issues on the front end of the Salesforce application. And just as a reminder, this was our previous hub architecture. And we stripped out the WebLogic adapters and the enterprise service bus, and also the data quality tool. So you see in our new architecture, since we stripped everything out, it's much simpler. If you ask us today, how long is it going to take us to do an integration, we'll probably tell you approximately 2 weeks to 4 weeks, depending on the source of the information that it's coming from. So right now, our hub is purely just a data transition hub. It's not a place where we store and massage and have our master set of data sitting in. So some of the lessons that we've learned, integration should definitely be automated, streamlined, and scalable. If you find yourself, concerned about the integration when someone's asking you for it, it's probably that you need to either revisit your architecture or the source of your data you realize is not clean and you have to kind of go back to the business and let them know that they're violating your data policies or your data rules within Salesforce. Always treat Salesforce as your golden source of information. If you don't trust the information that you're actually getting, just because it's easy to load the information in Salesforce, don't do it. Because it's much harder to actually clean up your information when you actually load it than for you to prevent the problem. And definitely don't overcomplicate the technology architecture. Because we've built such a complex architecture, we weren't even able to maintain what the business actually needed. We're working on this real-time integration. The business doesn't even mind having it integrated once a night. So we've based it all on the current requirements of the business, and it actually simplified everything. And Salesforce and the partners are always available to assist. So if you actually find yourself in any type of situation where you have all these integration questions, if you talk to Salesforce, Salesforce will give you, a set of vendors to talk to, and they'll come in-house to your office and do a demo for you. And we've actually had experiences where we would actually give them our information and have them run a demo for us based on our data. So they can actually do that for you. So it's always best to leverage Salesforce partners and native code. Thank you, everyone.
Any questions for Karen?
Yeah, I was curious, in terms of your architecture, how many resources were involved? Is it all done internally?
It's all done internally. There wasn't actually that many resources. Sure.
So how many, what was the, should we repeat the question?
Resources, and was it all done internally?
So how many resources were used to do the redesign?
Yeah.
And was it internal, external?
It was all done internal. I would say probably around 5 team members. Majority of them are technical. There was actually nothing on the front end that we actually needed to clean up. So it would be, we did Apex coding, we did Visual Force pages. We've brought in Informatica. We purchased the Salesforce connector from Informatica. So we had an integration developer. And we needed to collect business requirements. So we had some aspects of BA and project management to make sure that the project went through smoothly. So around 5 internal team members for 6 months.
What subscriptions and billing software do you use to upload the information from?
The question was, what subscriptions and billing software did we upload the information from?
For our subscriptions, database is actually in-house. We built it in-house, and also the billing as well. So we've actually used Informatica to extract all the information from all the different systems. It has the capability to extract from Oracle, Excel spreadsheets, Access, even from Salesforce to Salesforce. So the Informatica was key to our integration.
Data quality tools?
Yeah.
What are your tools first?
We've chose. Sorry.
I'm sorry, I need to repeat these for the recording. Data quality tools, can you speak to the data quality tools? That
Yeah. We chose CRM Fusion. It's a very cost-effective tool for what it needs to do, and you can actually do batch, merge, and deduplication, and very complex rules that you can have in there. So that was we've been using that product since 2005, and it's worked actually extremely well for us. We used to have Trillium, and when we talked about the complexity of our architecture, Trillium was something very robust, but it's not something that we needed to maintain. And CRM Fusion, you can go to the tutorial for like 15 minutes and you can set it up yourself.
So I actually have a question. So what was the time frame from when you had your existing installation to when you decided to go through this exercise?
We probably went back and forth for a whole year before we actually decided to redesign the integration, because it costs money, it takes resources. And through this time, we actually had a shift of management that came in to look at this objectively and decided that we need to go forward, otherwise we're not going to be scalable in the future.
Great. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Oh, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Very pleased to be here to talk to you today. I think we've got quite a good integration story to tell. We went from about 70 different systems, and I will show you a picture in a moment, to using Salesforce for our CRM, but also for our ERP activity, and NetSuite for our billing. And we did all that through cast iron. And our integration story really started when we were trying to take the data out of those legacy systems, but exists today as we look to integrate those systems moving forward. I'm not an IT person, so I can't give you a deep technical spec, but what I can give you is the view from the sort of project sponsor and what we wanted to achieve from the project. As you can probably tell from my accent, I'm not from around here, so hopefully everything will make sense and you'll understand me. A bit about our business. We are a leading small business ISP in the UK market. We were actually formed about 2 years ago from a strategic review of the EasyNet group. And EasyNet had decided that actually it really wanted to focus the growth of its business on global accounts. So we split the business into EasyNet Global Services, which took about 80% of the revenue, about 20% of the customers, and EasyNet Connect, which is the business I run, which had about 20% of the revenue, but 80% of the customers. Now, the IT systems that had been used in that one business were very much geared towards, and had been invested in, serving the needs of global customers. So for a volume business, they didn't really work very well. We also have a significant network coverage in the UK, so we can directly connect about 70% of the UK small businesses, and that was part of, because we are actually owned by the UK's leading satellite provider. So we had this fantastic opportunity to grow the business, but we didn't really have the sort of IT infrastructure in order to do it. There's a few Salesforce.com implementation stats, which my IT director tells me are pretty impressive, and I had lunch with a guy yesterday who said they were really impressive. Quite frankly, they go over my head, but I hope that you appreciate them. One thing we were very clear about was what our CRM and ERP requirements right up front. And when I first picked up the business, I'm going to move that. When I first picked up the business, I spent quite a bit of time with the people, and I looked at how they worked, and I looked at how they were doing what I call swivel chair integration. So they were inputting data into different systems. So our sales team were using Sales Logics. We have something called CDS, or had something called CDS for our provisioning. We had something called Tetra, which is a version of Sage for our billing. And our support was all done in something called Help Desk 2. So with that sort of swivel chair integration, so what I mean is you sit at one computer and tap, 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 and then you move to the next one, or alt-tabbing, was causing all sorts of problems for us. I wanted to get to one view of our customers, and I noted that not only did we have a lot of data rekeying and a lot of data errors going through the whole business, but also that issues were being passed around the business. So if a customer spoke to their account manager about a billing query, the salesperson had no view or knowledge of that billing and fired off an email to the billing person, who fired off an email to the support person because it was probably a result of a technical query. And that was creating a lot of what we call waste demand. Value demand is where you fulfill a customer request immediately. Waste demand is where you don't, you foul it up, and you're not creating value for the business or for the customer. I hired a new IT director, bright young thing, very clever chap, and he really defined the three bottom requirements. The first one was to buy rather than build, and I think we were pretty clear that IT and that the process wasn't our core competence as a business. We had the notion that other people had done it better. Our IT had sort of grown up organically through the 15-year life of the EasyNet group business. And actually, we probably really needed to start all over again. We also wanted to adopt technology rather than try and adapt it. So we really wanted to go for something as much off the shelf as possible. And he convinced me that there was this software as a service thing, which was all quite exciting, and we should look at that. All of this really was focused on better serving the needs of our customers. So for those of you that are technical in the room, this will excite you. This is the spaghetti we had before. For me, it horrifies me. And as for somebody who's trying to run a £30 million or $50 million business, it causes all sorts of problems. And I'll give you a specific example. We're still reliant on one of the little blue boxes down there, and it's actually a provisioning system. All of these boxes were built by people who left the company 5 years ago, and nobody knows how they work. And one of those boxes works in something called Perl script, whatever Perl script is, but it has 1,000 lines of code. The reason it has 1,000 lines of code, I found out 3 weeks ago, is because nobody knows how to change it. So they just add another line of code on. And that was a really pivotal issue in launching a new product. So please don't underestimate the impact of some of this stuff. Clearly that caused a lot of customer service issues. We had all those legacy systems, but we also had a lot of data sources to try and extract information out of. And I'll talk a bit about how we did that. We had 7 systems used in the sales process, which annoyed me intensely because I wanted my salespeople to spend more time selling and less time entering data. But that swivel chair integration really had tied us up in knots. So not only were we having a lot of order errors because the salesperson was entering the data in sales logics, they were then creating an Excel-based order form, giving it to the provisioning person. The provisioning person then entered it manually into this CDS system and then manually into the billing. You can imagine that with all those human interventions, we were just getting many, many data errors. It also meant, as you get a data error, it impacts on your book-to-bill time. I'm interested in the revenue that we're billing. But also, and we didn't really find this out until we'd gone live, it was creating all sorts of issues around our costs and our revenues that were impossible to spot. And there are 2 good examples here. One, we are a subscription business, so we take orders from customers or we provide services to customers. If they move their premises or they choose to regrade, we will treat that as providing a new service. And then we, in theory, cancel the old service. In the old world, what we were finding, because our processes weren't joined up, that we weren't always cancelling the old service. And if the customer had moved, we were still sending the bill to the old premise, and we were still accruing or still recognising the revenue, and also incurring the cost of the circuit at the other location. The second example there is that because we had, in the old world, we had provisioning people entering data into the CDS system, and they then had to go and set it up the billing. The first week we went live, I had my operations director on the phone whinging because he said, oh, these customers aren't in Salesforce, it's a load of rubbish. And when we actually got to the bottom of it, we found out that we'd used the billing data as the master. And the reason that these customers weren't in Salesforce is because we weren't billing them. And we soon fixed that. So we probably found about 10 or 20 customers out of 10,000 in that first week. But really, from my perspective, our customer satisfaction or net promoter was being held back because we couldn't join up our customer experience. As if that wasn't enough, due to the performance of the group, I was imposed with you must cut your headcount by 10%, which is never nice at the best of times. And having had the experience of all those old systems that actually nobody knew how they worked, I wanted to keep it all in-house, but I wanted to do it all at a low cost. My philosophy has always been to spend my company's money as if it's my own. And I think that's a very important thing. So we wanted to do it internally. We did all of this with a very small IT headcount. We had about 7 people, some of which were permanent and 3 were contract. We went for some very aggressive timescales. So we started talking to a number of vendors in September 2008. We selected Salesforce, Cast Iron, Webcom. We went into user acceptance in May this year, so literally just 6 to 8 months. And then my IT director foolishly said, we'll launch it for the new financial year on July the 1st, so it's neater. And of course, you can't move your financial year, so we had to deliver it for that date. So if you have IT directors you're trying to pin to the wall, do it at the beginning of the financial year. We also identified we needed to update all of our entire business processes in parallel. And I think that was one of our key learnings, because so many IT projects I've seen in the past, actually, these 3 items are not connected. So I was talking to a chap yesterday who said, well, we've got this fantastic software. We bought Salesforce, we bought this, we bought the other. And we've had all our people engaged, and we've had consultants in. but we can't get the damn thing to work. And it's because they hadn't really considered their process. So our key learning from this whole project was actually you need to get your people fully engaged, and in the initial RFP process we had operations, marketing, sales, finance, the whole team involved in that process. And then these people here, the Superman T-shirts, were the super users on the day of go live. We had to reinvent all our processes because they weren't documented. I had a business analyst who basically sat with people who did the work and wrote down what they did. And if you don't have documented processes, you get a good business analyst. That's the best way to do it. And as I'm sure the Salesforce people will tell you, we had the best technology, and I would agree with them there. So did we get what we wanted? Yes, we did. I now have a system where I can see all of our leads, our contacts or opportunities, so all the standard sort of stuff. But also all of our services. Okay, so all the products that we've sold, how they're configured on the network, the status of the routers, the status of the lines. We use cases both for provisioning, so the upfront connection of a broadband service or a lease line, but also for all our technical support and customer services. We don't use Salesforce billing, we use NetSuite, which is a bit of a dirty word here, I know, but we've fully integrated using cast iron, and I'll show you how that works, the output of that billing into Salesforce, all of the history and all of the network configuration. So how did we do that? Well, we used cast iron to basically to extract a lot of the data from the old systems, but also to provide the glue to link Salesforce and NetSuite together. And also we are using it in the way that we interact with other partners. I'm told that this will mean more to you than just to me, but the great thing about cast iron, and Richard says, my IT director says, Chris, it's so easy even you could do it, is there is no coding. And you can see that you literally say, well, I'll map this field to that field. And it's all done on a series of templates. And I'm sure the cast iron people will be happy to tell you how that works. But you know, my outtake is that we had 70 systems, we've now got one, and we did it on time, and we did it on budget, and it works. And the data's pretty good. So somewhere along the line, it must have been a pretty good solution. This is an example of how we've used the cast iron and we've used the CRM API to sort of pull data through. So as I said, we use NetSuite for all our billing. We did look at, I think, what was called Coder to Go. I think it's now called something else. We've renamed it. But when we went live, it wasn't quite ready. And this is data that is actually sucked out of NetSuite and into Salesforce. And the great thing about this is that anybody can see the status of the billing. And in fact, in our partner portal, which we've just launched, the first thing the partner sees, because they're so bad at paying, is this is how much you owe us and this is how much is left on your credit. Okay, so we don't need the full data of the billing, but we do need a real-time view, and cast iron is the glue that provides that. What it also does is it enables us to keep all the configuration information about our customers. So if you know anything about broadband or being an ISP, it's not just the line. So there's a physical line that's involved. There's something called a DSLAM, the exchange equipment. There's the router, there's the port or router or port, and all the various other information. And we keep all of that configuration within Salesforce. And again, cast iron is the glue that holds that together. I wanted to talk a little bit about actually what this enabled us to do as a business. Because while the integration is very important, it's actually, from my perspective, what did this enable us to do? Well, probably the biggest thing is, I don't know how much of you know about how the car industry works, but Ford production is all done on a production line. Volvo in Sweden make cars on a team basis. Okay, so there's a group of people who get around an XC70 or XC90 and they make that car from beginning to end. Okay, it doesn't pass along the production line. And that's really something we wanted to do, and by moving to Salesforce, this enabled us to change the way we run our business. So any of the provisioning cases or any of the technical cases are now owned by an individual right through from beginning to end. It's far more empowering, it's far more enjoyable for the people, and also it's better for the customer as well because they have one person to talk to. That one view of the customers improved the whole experience. It's improved the way that our internal or our staff all work together. Because they have got that view, we've got rid of a lot of those silos. And that really only came by integrating everything into one place. And the workflow works much better. There's a few good things like the consistency of our communication. and also the way that the fact that we now have this great visibility. So it's been very good to highlight, and this is sort of standard Salesforce thing, the good practice, but from my perspective it also highlights where the bad practice is. And new products have been very quick to implement, and we've used webcom for some of the sort of configuration there. So where are we going next? Well, we just launched our partner relationship management module, and we have a customer portal that is due to go live in the new year. On the integration side, our next big piece of work that we have just finished testing, and we're about to launch, and actually when the customer portal goes live, this will be completely done, is that a customer can place an order with us online. It populates Salesforce. Then Cast Iron then takes that relevant data, passes it across to British Telecom, who are our provider of some services, places the order, gets all the status updates, provisions the line, tells our router supplier to send the router out, and then the customer goes live, and nobody touches it. And that's our sort of holy grail, and we're very close to that. We're just missing the sort of the customer portal ordering part. We're also looking also on the webcom side at how we can integrate with third-party catalogues and do some more complex tenders. So I wanted to give you a view of sort of what our key takeaways from our implementation were. I think from my perspective, or from certainly talking to my team and I've friends who've sort of gone through similar things, you do need top-down sponsorship. This was a project that I'd very early identified personally that we needed to do. And I've driven it through, right the way through the process. I've had to go and argue with group people to get the capital funding to do this. And also I've driven the implementation very hard, pushing my IT team, making sure that the operational people are involved, making sure the sales and marketing people are involved. And I think if you've got that, my feedback is that that really helps. I've also been taught how to run reports and how to make dashboards, which was quite a fun experience. And then I spent a whole evening building all sorts of things. And that's got me the nickname of Sauron. I don't know if many of you know Lord of the Rings, but Sauron is the all-seeing eye. Because I can now see everything, I was able to go in and talk to my operations director and say, do you know those cases, those provisioning cases? Well, you know these ones, they haven't been updated for, and these sales, and why isn't this pipeline? So, I think it sort of really helped us. The second point may not be very attractive for IT people in the room, but a new IT approach may mean a new IT team. We recruited a new IT, I recruited a new IT director. But before we actually started this process, he identified he actually needed to change out most of the people in his team. So new world thinking sometimes needs new world people. I think from our perspective, you have to start the data cleanse as early as you can. There's two views on this. You can either clean everything in situ, or actually, in our experience, it's almost better to clean it once you've moved it. So we'd identified through the cast iron work what we wanted to migrate and which the master record was, and we used the billing data, as I said earlier, as a sort of master record. But it was actually easier to do a lot of the cleaning once we'd moved it, because you can clean data in the old system, but if you haven't got that complete view, actually you're not quite sure what you're cleaning and where it's going to go. Certainly from our perspective, integration had real benefits, and putting the effort into that had benefits beforehand. It gave us that 360-degree view of the customer. But it was equally important after the integration was after the project went live. I think from my perspective, having that one view of the customer was absolutely essential. And it has meant that we've actually been able to really crank up our business and work more efficiently. I've also always wanted to be able to significantly increase the volumes that we put through of orders, but I wanted to be able to do that without impacting the amount of headcount. In the old world, if I'd had a 50% increase in volumes, I would have had requests, not necessarily granted them, but requests for 50% more people. Actually now I can do 50% more volumes and I don't need more people. And from a maximising our profitability and EBIT, that's very important. And I think, as I said earlier, our key takeaway really is that actually you need to get the right software. And I'm sure there are lots of people outside who will tell you what the right software is. But if you don't get the engagement by all of the people right from the beginning of the process, you don't get the right sponsorship, and you don't revisit all of your processes, it will fail. Thank you very much.
Any questions for Chris?
Question, do you run your compensation out of Salesforce as well?
The sales commission, yeah? We do. We've sort of slightly changed the way that we do it at the moment. There's somebody exactly who we are talking to about that. The reason that I'm being a bit vague about it is that we have certain exceptions. So what we actually sell through Salesforce is not what we currently commission our people on. We're just in the process of changing that. And we are looking at the exactly?
Yep.
Yeah. Sort of system so that our salespeople can actually see, if you just sell this much more in your pipeline, then you will earn this much more money. We have quite a complex commission, so we needed to sort of align the two before we went for it. So, obviously we pay people on the regrade activity they've done, so upselling, but we pay people on new business and so forth. But yeah, that's what we want to do.
Any other questions? Thank you, Chris.